In ancient times, Jews didn't have synagogues. We made sacrifices to God in places where heaven and earth came together, and quite often there was a desire to give thanks to God. Our ancestors would make offerings of sheep and ox and other kosher animals, and yes, according to our rabbis, our biblical forefathers did know about kashrut, and God would sniff the reach nichoach, the delicious smell. Now, obviously, God does not physically eat, doesn't have a mouth, but that is how we refer to God so that we can better understand. But God could be satiated by the scrumptious smoke that would waft up from the altar. Eventually, God decided it was time to build a house. King David was supposed to have the honor of building God's house, but King David allowed his libido to control him a little too much. He saw a beautiful woman bathing on the roof, took her into his home, had her husband killed. For this, David was barred from building God's house. The honor was given to his son Solomon. At the dedication of Solomon's temple, he shared God's words with the whole house of Israel that had assembled there. God said, "From the time I brought my people out of the land of Egypt, I never chose a city from among all the tribes of Israel to build a house where my name might abide. But then I chose Jerusalem for my name to abide there." With the rise of the temple, our hearts and focus began to turn east. On our 3 pilgrimage festivals, Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot, all of Israel would walk to the temple with an offering for God. That is why they are called Shalosh Regalim. These are your raglaim. They would literally walk to the temple. Now, I know a lot of you think that the pilgrimage from our parking lot to either the building or the tent is quite taxing, but I think our ancestors have us beat. What was important is that no matter what the offering, the temple was everyone's house, a place to connect in the way that we knew how, giving the best of what we had, be it animal, vegetable, or even flour, and the priest would then sacrifice it to God on our behalf. Incredibly, Solomon asked the question that many of us have probably considered too. If the heaven and earth cannot contain God, how can this house? Solomon knew there was no way to contain God, even the magnificent house he built. So instead, Solomon made a request of God. He asks, "Turn, O Lord my God, to the prayer and supplication of your people, and hear the cry and the prayer of your people and what they offer you. May your eyes be open day and night towards this house, towards the place where you have resolved to make your name abide. May you heed the prayers that your people offer you in this place." Solomon asks that God turn to that house just as we turn east. He asks that God pay attention to the place where God's name dwells, because the people who pray there call upon God for help and to give thanks and to ask forgiveness. It was as if Solomon was saying, "Please, God, pay attention to this place where we gather and offer you praise. This is how we know how to communicate with you. So please, God, turn to this place and hear our prayer." On Monday night, the Jewish world will commemorate the destruction of both temples in Jerusalem on Tisha B'Av. Now, once we no longer had the temples and we were scattered all over the earth, we needed to make Judaism portable. We needed many houses of God for God's name to dwell. Fast forward almost 2,000 years, and here we are. Throughout history, we have built houses for God's name, big and small, from tiny little hidden synagogues in the Venetian ghetto in Italy to magnificent synagogue in Prague. We marvel at Central Synagogue in New York and Plum Street Temple in Cincinnati. They are exquisite examples of Jewish people adapting to the architectural designs of the time. But no matter what size or age, the opulence or the simplicity, the goal has always been the same: for God's name to fill the air, and that God turns toward that house in prayer. And thankfully, our God has quite eclectic taste, and everywhere God is welcomed into houses of worship, God enters. And we build these houses more often than we realize. When we build a sukkah, it's like building a little house. We look up at the stars to remind us of the covenant made with our ancestors, that we would be as numerous as the stars of the sky. We build a space to be enveloped in our covenant with God. It is yet another place that we welcome God's presence and ask God to dwell among us. When we get married, we stand under a chuppah, a mikdash me'at, a small sanctuary. It is open on all sides to welcome the love and family and friends. And Rabbi Yedwab was right. Look up. Look around you. It feels like we are sitting under a massive chuppah. This too is a space where we can be enveloped in our covenant. This is a space where, as the rabbis say, God and the people of Israel renew their vows over and over again. It is a place we can come together just as our ancestors did at the temple in Jerusalem. You can be Jewish on your own, but it's hard to do Jewish on your own. And luckily, we don't have to. We have our congregations to come home to, the places where God's name dwells. And as we sit together tonight under this pavilion, this chuppah, this place of peace and prayer, we pray that our brothers and sisters in Israel are kept safe from harm. We pray that God covers them with a sukkah of protection and shelter. We can only hope that our words here tonight somehow make it to their ears, and they know we are standing with them and praying for their welfare. We can only pray, as Solomon said, that God's eyes and ears are open to our prayers, and that then, when God turns east, God provides the protection so desperately needed in a time of war. And as we dedicate this sacred space this evening, we do it as one congregation, one people, with one voice. So instead of just my voice being heard, I want you to join with me. So please take out your card once again and flip it to the other side and read responsively with me. A congregation in worship is a community declaring its devotion to God. Ours is an experience that can deepen our spirits and strengthen the bonds between us.
When we pray, we know that our prayers are shared with those around us, and it helps us realize that we are all striving for the same thing.
We pray for this congregation, the people and the place, for the sacred times and the sacred spaces where we come together.
We pray for the future that someday a young child will say, "This place was built for me."
It was once said, "True prayer is not a petition to God, but a sermon unto ourselves." God, let our prayers reach you, and let our prayers motivate us to bring about a better world, a world of love, kindness, justice, and peace. Shabbat Shalom.